Will the Donald get trumped if his policies don't sink him? Will the math and electoral map do him in? We're going to take a deep dive into the hill that he's got to climb. Then if you thought this hostage video was bad, it gets worse for the Jersey governor. Wait till you see what happened last night. You better cover your eyes before you look at his approval ratings. And the story of Anthony Weiner, surreal to say the least. A rising star in Congress stepping down in disgrace. Then, running for mayor of New York City, the big story is now on the big screen. We will preview Weiner. Sounded funny. Good evening and welcome to RFL. I'm Richard French. Thanks for joining us tonight. Last night, we talked about a Fox News poll showing Trump leading Hillary Clinton by a narrow margin in the race for the White House. But it appears that that poll could be an outlier. Now, a more complete poll shows Clinton back on top, but there are some worrying signs. And beyond the numbers, policy experts, they're beginning to punch holes in most of Donald Trump's biggest ideas. And again, these are coming from nonpartisan lines, so it's not just the Democrat or Republican thing. And for more on both of these fronts, let's bring in our senior political correspondent, Andrew Whitman. Andrew?
And Rich, that new poll that you referenced is from the New York Times and CBS, and it seems more in line with other major polls we've been seeing as the primary part of the campaign comes to a close. Clinton is up 6 in the poll over Trump, 47 to 41, with 5% of Americans saying they just won't vote. That may be because of how unpopular both candidates are. The headline here, their unfavorable numbers are now just 3 points apart. As for both parties, the GOP still not faring as well as the Democrats. Far more voters describe the Republican Party as divided even as the Democratic primaries continue. And far fewer voters think that Trump can unite the GOP. Most people think Hillary can rally her fellow Democrats. But as voters start getting to know Donald Trump as the presumptive nominee of the Republican Party, Trump's policy ideas are already being rejected by a growing number of experts. Trump's tax plan, it would add $10 trillion to the national debt. Trump's Mexican wall would, quote, defy the logic of science, engineering, and law. Trump's Muslim ban, described by former Secretary Robert Gates as unworkable. And more than 100 top foreign policy and military experts, many of them Republicans, say Trump's military and foreign policies cannot be taken seriously, which is somewhat problematic since, as 2 local lawmakers who sit on foreign affairs and intelligence committees remind us, after the convention in July, Donald Trump will begin receiving classified security briefings, which means, Rich, Trump will have access to secret, sensitive national security materials and his Twitter account at the same time.
Think about that, everybody. Let's bring in our buddy Dominic Carter, political journalist and author. He's also with us. You know, guys, I saw Trump's address to the NRA, and it was fascinating only because if you closed your eyes and didn't know anything that happened before, you'd say, hey, this guy, he's right of, the center of the party on the Republican side, but he checks off all the boxes. You know, he wants no background checks. He wants people to have concealed carries wherever they want and everything else. The problem is, if you look at what he said after Newtown, and you look what he had to say over the years from Bill Clinton when he was president, and even through Barack Obama as president, he's a liberal Democrat. Somehow the NRA, who has a purity test for everybody, is going to either have to say, do I believe this guy? Or I just hate Hillary so much, I'll go for it. And that applies to everything that Andrew just said. The math doesn't add up on taxes, Dominic. He can talk about, there's no way Vincente Fox is going to say, how much should I make the check out for, Donald, to build the wall along my border here for you? And then how exactly going to, say you're going to keep all Muslims out when on a passport it doesn't say your religion, right? All these things, none of it makes sense, and it could be devastating for the country. I know what you're going to say. Rich, you missed the boat here. You're not listening to the public.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good.
But at a certain point, do we say, I've seen The Music Man before. I know how this ends. The guy's hustling us. He doesn't know what he's talking about, and he doesn't mean what he's saying.
I agree with you. I agree with you 1,000%. But here comes the but. Mm-hmm. The but, Richard, is this. The electorate has to know the same exact thing that you and I do.
Wait a second. I'm going to ask you now seriously. And you do a lot of stuff out in a lot of different parts of not just our region here, okay? Do you believe the electorate already knows what we talked about today? Do you think they had any clue that his tax plan, for example, will put us $10 trillion more in debt.
What I was trying to say, and I didn't do a good job of articulating it, the American public doesn't care what the so-called experts think. I really believe that when Obama was elected, a lot of Americans, not just African Americans, all over the country, as we all know, said, we're going to bet on this guy. This guy is going to prove partisan politics wrong. Whether you like Obama or not, we know how the script is played out. It didn't exactly work the way that the American consumer, voter would want.
We didn't do a giant kumbaya.
Right, we didn't do a giant kumbaya. Things didn't necessarily get better the way that the American public thought. I really believe, Richard, that people are sick. A woman stopped me just 2 nights ago, another woman in the supermarket. I really believe people are sick and tired of politicians that have all the answers, say all the right things, but things never get better. And that's why I think Trump
By the
is
way,
going
you
to
notice
do well.
it's always women stopping Dominic.
And he goes to the supermarket
Yeah,
a lot.
I spend a lot of time in the
he hits all
supermarket.
four like nobody's business. But Andrew, again, we don't know exactly what their strategy is going to be, but certainly they're going to spend a lot of money, will be Hillary land, to try and pull the veil back and say the guy's a charade. There's no substance, and more than that, he changes his mind at the drop of the hat, and he doesn't know what he's talking about. Dom makes the bet that for a lot of this country, nearly half of this country at least, they don't care. You buy that?
I think his numbers are off. I think he's right in overall philosophy, but I think the numbers are off. It's certainly not half the country. Look, the poll that I just gave had about 89% of the voting population that had already made up their mind one way or another, and another 5% in that poll said they weren't going to vote. So you're looking at a maximum of 10% of the electorate out there that's caught in the middle and hasn't made up their mind yet. Now, the three of us clearly, I think we recognized Trump at the NRA today was transactional. He wanted their endorsement, he got it, and then he read through the laundry list of all of the positions that the NRA has had. And I don't believe in my heart that Trump actually believes all of those positions. At one point during the speech today, he said, I think my sons have too many guns, or something to that effect, which hardly seems like it's on the script for what you would say to the NRA.
My question is there. Take that as an example, Andrew. None of us are sitting in the NRA meetings, okay? So I'm asking you to divine something, I grant it, but they are the biggest BS detectors around. They don't want to have to guess where you stand on something. That's why they give report cards to every lawmaker. And if you don't vote exactly the way they want, they don't trust you. Trump has been outspoken on the record after the tragedy at Newtown here. It was an indictment on the NRA. He called them out by name.
This is a marriage of convenience, Rich. Trump needs the
But don't you have
NRA,
to
and the
trust the
NRA
marriage?
needs Trump. Well, who are they going to turn to? Gary Johnson? They're going to turn to Hillary? I don't think so. So the only game in town for the NRA is Donald Trump, and Donald Trump needs the support of the NRA. Look, we're looking at 10% maximum of the population that hasn't made up their minds yet. Of those, a subset of that is not going to care about the things that he says, and they're going to vote on his attitude, either a positive or a negative, and the rest will actually dig into it.
Dom's right. A lot of people are sick of the so-called experts, including guys like us telling them what to think, how to feel. Got it. Believe it. I think he's right. But here's my question. People tend to trust people in uniforms in this country, okay? Military especially. If you got a bunch of former Joint Chiefs of Staff saying, you people are crazy if you let this guy near the launch codes, does that change minds? Does it change minds if former CIA directors say, you cannot have a commander-in-chief where you're petrified he's going to tweet out confidential information? In the last 24 hours, he's called Bill Clinton a rapist, and before there has been even the NTSB on the ground, he's already saying there was terrorism in Egypt or on Egypt Air. He has no filter. We've got 70 years of his life of proof that he's got no filter. And even when he promises to behave,
No filter
Dominic,
right
he
now.
said he was going to be more presidential. When's that going to start? He's already gone against what Manafort said at least 3 times.
And it was the right thing to do, because if he did what Manafort says, he would be more restricted, and perhaps he would not connect as well as he is with the American people. Richard, I really
Would you
believe
bet against me that if he gets an intelligence and a
he
classified
would
brief,
never reveal confidential classified
Are
information.
you that sure?
That's a federal crime.
No.
That's a federal
I'm
crime.
not that sure, Dom.
He
And it
cannot.
would open himself up on the Hillary, on the email thing, too,
Right.
because he wouldn't be able to hammer her if he's all of a sudden
I still think he
slipped with
can't
some
control
information.
himself.
Look, I think a lot of these issues and a lot of this analysis we can sort of push to the side. To me, this election is going to be about who do you dislike less. Donald or Hillary.
But there was something else you said that I agree with 1,000%. Your term of a marriage of convenience. That's exactly that's the best way to sum it up with Trump. I think the public is saying we don't necessarily, I'm sorry for cutting you off, we don't necessarily like him, but it's a marriage of convenience that we can live with.
But you used to have a good number of Roman Catholic Latinos, okay, that would vote Republican because on social issues they were conservative. He's burned that block. On the female vote, look at what Trump, how he beat Romney over the last, and before him McCain by the margins. Hillary's winning by even more. I don't think it's because she's a historical candidate. Women just hate him that much, at least by the margins.
Right now.
He's cutting off so many different demos.
Right now.
Well, and he's also got Hillary who's helping him. I mean, all of his negatives get cleansed to a certain degree because her negatives are so high. They're almost tied. I mean, they're within the margin of error on disapproval and who do you trust less. I mean, a lot of Donald Trump's sins will be forgiven by a lot of voters because they don't like or trust Hillary Clinton.
The only thing I'll say, I know we're going to hit a break, is I heard the same things. It's so eerie to me what people were saying after Sarah Palin's bravura performance at the Republican convention. When she went out there, she nailed the speech and everything else. Then all of a sudden, she got exposed as the biggest lightweight in politics, and that's saying something. And then all of a sudden, people are like, please. At best, she gets a reality show. She don't get to go near the Oval Office.
But Trump's not a lightweight. I mean,
Trump,
he's a lightweight. He's not an experienced political guy. He's not unintelligent, and he's certainly shown a deftness in the primary process of being able to deflect
not
a lot of the
policy.
things that we all thought
that.
were going to sink him at some point. He can always rely on the fact that, look, I'm not a natural politician. I say things that maybe are out of bounds. That's part of his appeal. At least that's been part of his appeal so far.
Okay. A little closer to home here. How low can you go? If you're Chris Christie's poll numbers, the answer, really, really low. You won't believe how bad. And teaming up with Trump, not exactly doing the Jersey governor a lot of favors. The Donald keeps mocking, and all the Gov can do is keep on smiling.